conference will now be recorded.
So you want to
Okay,
volume down?
this is the Finance Committee meeting. This is Thursday, August 6th, 6:30 PM. We have a full board tonight, and we have some callers. The callers are, assume, here for the petition articles, and we'll get to you. We're going to do a few housekeeping kind of things first, and then we'll get to that part of the agenda. We'll go fairly quickly, I think. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes. Once again, prepared very well by Brian. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to accept the minutes as printed.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Brian has volunteered while he's here, anytime he's here, that he would keep the minutes for us, so we don't have to worry about it. When he's not here, we'll figure out who's doing that, but
I have no life, I'll be here.
it's very much appreciated, and
He's got a working email now,
it's
too.
unbelievable. Yeah, and I'm getting through to him, and he's getting through to me, so
Life is good.
that seems to be an important piece to all of this. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a unanimous vote again. Update on the subcommittee. We've had no subcommittee meetings since Tuesday, and I have no updates on what's going on there at all, except that now they're kind of done their thing that they've had for the past week, so we'll get those going again. I'm hoping that maybe next Wednesday we'd have one, but we'll see what their schedule is. Update on the budgets. Do we have anything new or different that we should know about? Oh, Carol has something new and different. Oh, good.
Article 10, this is capital items funded from free cash, items under $50,000.
Yep,
I have an update for the fire air pack.
okay, let me switch to that. Okay. So you have a new number for us?
I do.
And
The
that is?
total, so line 2 of that chart, the total is $575,165.18. The state grant portion
Yep,
is $547,776.36. And I'm sorry, I didn't calculate a new total.
Okay.
But I can do that for you.
all right. So the money we would appropriate would be less the grant. We'll probably we'll discuss that a little bit later after we do the petition stuff, if that's all right. Okay?
So I have a new total for you of $42,298.82.
$42,299. How about that?
Okay.
That way we can have a leftover article someday with 12 cents in it or something.
Can I ask you a question on, you know the answer? How long, is that a total air pack replacement or a segment of what they totally have?
My understanding is the total air pack
Total,
replacement.
Total.
They were gonna segment it out to make it easier on the budgets,
Yeah.
but got an opportunity for this grant and went forward with it.
And do we know how long they last? Okay, dear, long. Okay.
It's a fairly ongoing, I think I've been through 6 or 7 iterations of the air packs over my time here, so.
Okay.
It's a few years, but it's not.
I'll find it. I'm just curious to see how long they last.
All right, anything else on the budgets? All right, that gets us to the warrant. We have guests tonight, and that's good. Is anybody here for, we'll do the first one, for a plastic water bottle ban, Article 40 in our book? Is anybody here for that?
Hello, hello.
Hello?
Oh,
Hello?
mute.
Hello?
Hello?
I can't hear, can you hear me right now?
I can hear you, Deborah. Is that
I
you?
can hear you, yes. Okay. Oh, okay. Have people been talking?
I don't hear any, no.
Okay, all right. I just was concerned that I wasn't hearing audio.
Hold up.
Hi,
folks.
Deborah, it's Robin. I'm not hearing it either.
Hold up.
Hi, Robin. Yeah, maybe they haven't started yet. I don't know.
Could you
I'm a little
mute it for
concerned.
just a second? Is that
I am
possible?
too. It is the number, that was on the agenda.
Excuse me.
And when I tested it out,
Can't hear us.
I could hear. Can any of you gentlemen hear us talking?
Do a thumbs up.
Okay, so they hear us. Can we hear you?
Should.
I hope so. Can
How
you hear me?
come?
Can you hear me right now? I guess not.
Yes,
You can hear me?
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
now I can. Is that Dana?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so if we could just
Okay.
have you hold, I don't know who caller, there's a caller number 3 on here, and there's a caller number 1. I don't know who those people are. I know there's a person named Mickey here, and I know there's a Deborah here. Are you all here for the same article?
You
Are you all here for?
You can't see, can you see any of us?
Yes, I can see you.
Hi, Dana, it's Robin Lord. I'm also on the call, just on the phone. I'm having trouble with my computer.
Okay,
So-
and you're here for which article, Robin?
For the one
Climate.
about the climate emergency.
Okay, and are you here as, for the article, or are you here from the paper?
Oh, no, I don't work for the paper. I haven't worked for them. No, I'm here for the article. I'm a member of Harwich Can.
All right,
So
do we-
Robin, you probably need to go to the video icon and make it so that we can see you.
No, Deborah, I'm having trouble getting onto my computer, so I'm sorry. I'm just doing the phone.
All right,
Oh.
folks, please, Deborah, I'm going to ask you to
And I
speak when I
also
call on you,
said
but
she-
not to speak before that. Hello? You got that? We have to keep the meeting orderly. Everybody's on a different communication line here, so please don't speak unless I call on you, and we'll go there. In fact, if you can keep your mics off and then turn them on when you want to be called on, that way I can tell that you want to speak. That helps me out a lot. So we're going to talk about Article, and that is Article 41 or 42? 41? 42. Article 42, which is the new climate bylaw. And the way I would like to do this, if it's possible with the group, is to have one person kind of give us a thumbnail as to what's going on with the article. And then we're going to open it up to the members of the Finance Committee for questions, to see what they have for questions. Because we're the Finance Committee, we kind of look at dollars and cents and things like that. So we would like to approach it that way. And then at the end of the discussion, we'll give anybody an opportunity that wants to speak, the opportunity to speak. Finance Committee lets people speak here. We do that, but we like to try to do it in an orderly way. And then if we think we have enough information, we'll actually entertain a motion and take a vote right on the article, so you'll know tonight where we stand if we have enough information. So if that sounds okay, I don't know who the representative for the article would be to speak on it first, but we would invite one of you to go ahead and kind of explain what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Hi, Dana, it's Robin.
Okay? very good, Robin.
And I'm going to go ahead and just give you a quick overview.
Wonderful.
And my name again is Robin Lord. I'm a member of the Harwich Climate Action Network, or CAN. There are a number of CANs across the Cape, and so this article, in recognition of the fact that Cape Cod is particularly vulnerable to changes in our climate, we are proposing that Harwich join other towns across the region in a broad, coordinated effort to address climate disruption and dramatically reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. This is, we call this, as it has been called in other towns, the Climate Emergency and Net Zero Declaration, which is an acknowledgement of current scientific understanding and our recent local experience with the effects of a warming world. We believe and we know the science backs this up that our community is extremely vulnerable to severe storms, flooding, rising sea levels, shifting habitats, public safety threats, and economic disruptions. So this article would establish a town policy. There is no money behind this article at this point, so it's basically a starting point and an expression of intention by our community to address climate change and recognize that we're living in a climate emergency that threatens our region. And it would be in place to kind of as an overriding, arching understanding that our elected officials, town departments, boards, committees, be empowered to proactively address the climate crisis at the local level. And so, in other words, whenever enacting or taking any kinds of votes or policies, that climate and sustainability be top of mind. I guess I would quote Richard Delaney, who is the founder of the Cape Cod Climate Change Collaborative and president of the Center for Coastal Studies, that Cape Cod and the islands is an epicenter of the climate crisis worldwide, and the science is incontrovertible. Carbon emissions must be reduced to net zero as soon as possible to avert a climate catastrophe. Now is the time for comprehensive and concerted local action, Cape-wide, by town citizens, employees, businesses, and elected officials to collaborate as teams to achieve net zero within each town as soon as possible. So that's basically in a nutshell what this is about. We'd be glad to answer your questions. There are other members who are on the call who can weigh in, but it's basically a first step. Kind of the town would collect if by passing this article collectively recognize the emergency and join our neighboring towns in this commitment to address it.
I guess I'll just start with one technical question. Why a bylaw instead of a resolution at town meeting?
Well, we have discussed that, and we're sort of looking for direction from you or the Board of Selectmen. Some towns have done them as resolutions, Dana, and others have done them as bylaws.
Okay, that helps me a lot. Thank you. I'll open up to the board and ask if there are any board members that have questions. I have a couple of, Dan has a question.
Yeah, I'm curious to know.
You might have to speak right over to the mic there, Dan.
I'm curious to know how you envision this policy being rolled out over the next 8-10 years within the town.
Well, again, Dan, this is Robin. I would just speak to that this is a first step. And it sort of just sets the intention. Again, we are working with other cans around Cape Cod to develop the next steps. So it's possible and probable that we would be back before town meeting with other more tangible articles and propositions.
Are there any examples that you could provide to kind of give me some kind of a vision of what this might look like down the road?
Well, some local priorities that are being considered are promoting conservation and efficiency in our buildings and our town vehicles, moving to renewable energy and clean fuel wherever we can. I know the town is well ahead on that already. Improving resource management, finding ways for natural carbon storage. Those are just a few of the examples.
Thank you. That helps. That helps.
Are any of these efforts being done off Cape as well? Do you know, Robin?
Yes, this is a statewide an initiative. There is a Massachusetts can as well.
Okay, and you're pursuing, I think, all these things at the state level as well?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
I guess I'll just try to frame this in the form of a question. You know, every time I see a big zero on an article that is later going to cost us potentially millions of dollars, I kind of get a little nervous about it. This is the Finance Committee. This is the a bylaw for the town of Harwich. I would much prefer it as a resolution, and I would support it heartily. It's sort of like we're not against, as a group, the Quint fire truck, but until we get a bid on the thing, we really probably not going to vote for it. So you know, when we've just gone through the experience of completely addressing wastewater in the town. That took years of monitoring, that took many public hearings and public information kind of things. It took the printing of pamphlets. It took a lot of education and monitoring before we got to the point where we're going to lay out a 40-year schedule that involves $200 million before moving forward, before we started asking for votes for bylaws and funding and so forth. So I see an actual bylaw going on the books and holding us without knowing. I mean, the Finance Committee has to stand before a town meeting, and I would assume that someone's going to ask, what's this going to cost us? And right now, we don't have that answer. And I'm just wondering if it's too late to think about the approach, and have you talked to the moderator about a resolution?
It's certainly not too late, and if there's a possibility we could substitute a resolution on town meeting floor, definitely. So I understand your concern, and maybe Dana, for the benefit of our group, a resolution, does a resolution sound more reasonable for setting an intention rather than specifically designating certain things to be done?
Yes, I think that, I mean, in my opinion, when I was first reading this and seeing all the backup that you supplied, you folks were very good about sending us information. My thought was that a bylaw would be included in some further step, which would also include the first, say, 4 things we would want to do in the next 5 years. And if that is to, you know, to start by taking, you know, a fourth of our fleet and turning it into fuel-efficient vehicles, or changing 100% of the lighting in the buildings, or whatever the first 5 steps make the most sense for us, and try to get our hands around what that would cost, just seemed like a future step to me. Putting in a bylaw first that says, this is what you're working towards, and get to 0 as soon as possible without any dollars attached to the article for a Finance Committee is just a tough one, I think, to support. My other members might disagree with that completely, but I personally think that that's a tough one, especially when you get to town meeting. As you know, Robin, I'm about, this is for Harwich, and this is what we're trying to do. How much is it going to cost is going to be a question.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's great feedback, Dana. I don't know, Deborah or Susan, do you have any questions or input on that?
Well, I was just going to reiterate what it says in the petition about the cost, in terms of saying that whatever decisions the town of Harwich is making related to new buildings or to policy would take into consideration the earliest technically and economically feasible plan that would be leading towards a net zero carbon emission. So it's worded in such a way as to say, we're not setting a goal of 5 electric cars or 25% of this or that, but just saying that if the people who are making decisions are doing it as technically and economically feasible. So that's the wording. But I hear that you're saying you would be more comfortable with it being more specific.
Yeah, I think except for the Kroll barn, that we do that anyways. We try to build our buildings as modern and as efficient as possible. The last major projects in the town have been what were called green or efficient buildings through the construction process. So it's a question of we're doing those kinds of things now without this bylaw.
What about sequestration of carbon by increasing woodlands and preserving marshlands?
I think you can look to the whole Coys Brook effort is actually going to create a whole different infrastructure around that area of the town, but it's to help relieve the nitrogen that's coming into and that source of a problem. I think, and certainly Robin knows this, over the last 25 years, we've spent as much money as we could possibly spend through the land bank to try and hold land and acquire land and keep it natural and stop it from being developed. Back in the day, the population was expected to go from, we went from 3,000 people to 6,000 and then to 12,000. And everybody at that time in the late 90s thought we were going right up to 20,000. All the things that we've done since then to buy land and stop that growth has kept us at 12,000, between 12 and 13,000 ever since. We've been that way for 20 years now. So the growth has leveled out to a point where we're not growing anymore. We still have the same seasonal situation that every Cape Town has. But I would say land-wise, we're doing those things. You know, I think in Harwich, if you compare us to jumbo jet 747 taking off, we do pretty well. I mean, a lot more is spent outside of Harwich than we spent. We don't have any major manufacturing. We don't have a lot of things that other things cities and towns have that would contribute. So we're willing to do specific things if we're offered them, but I think the people of Harwich have to know what it is and what it's going to cost. And I think that's the direction I would like to see this go. And others can chime in. I'm speaking, but John's ready to speak. Good.
Thank you for your presentation, Robin and Deborah, for
You might want to move the mic too.
Thank you for coming before us, Deborah and Robin, and explaining your new climate policy, Article 42 there. We've covered pretty much a couple of the questions I had. Was the cost of the thing, which I think we can all agree on. We don't know what the cost is, and being a finance committee member, and I've been pushing hard to try not to approve things, and I don't know the cost of what those things are, and I'm still going to stick to that thought. And the earliest possible on the technology and the economic feasibility timeline statement, that's a very broad question. You know, what you may think or other people may think what is technically feasible and economically feasible is not what I'm going to think is technically or economically feasible. Another very open question there. And on the other, I'm assuming this is on other towns around the Cape, right? All 15 towns? Some of the towns have had town meetings. Have they passed this law, or what was the outcome of those town meetings that other towns have been asked to vote on?
This is Robin, and Deborah may know more about this. I know several towns have had their articles postponed because they had town meetings already and they were limiting the warrant to only the most necessary articles. I believe there are some towns that have already passed this. Deborah, do you have any more knowledge of that?
I do know that in Yarmouth and Barnstable and Chatham and Brewster, it has been presented to the Board of Selectmen and to the FinComs in those towns, and they've approved them. and it's been adopted in over 1,500 communities around the country. So we're not creating this out of nothing. It's been part of an initiative that's been happening around the country. So in terms of which town meetings have accepted it on the Cape, I think Brewster and Orleans for sure. I'm pretty sure that Falmouth and Sandwich, it's passed in those towns as well.
So that's like 7 or 8 towns have approved this, is that correct? Okay. Thank
I
you.
think I hear you guys now.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had, and
Any other questions for members of the board?
I have a question.
Angelo?
I think it's going to be important to lay out for the people who will be voting what the cost might be for them. Otherwise, they're going to say no. Because what you're asking us to do is to say, yeah, it's a good idea, I'd like to have it done, but if it's $1,000, I'll vote for it. If it's $1 million, I can't vote for it. And I imagine it's somewhere in between there. So I think you have to work out what the costs are going to be of various things and how long it would take to get the whole thing done. Otherwise, you're asking us to make very bad decisions, I think.
You know, Robin, on an emotional level, certainly town meeting could overrule the finance committee on something like this. That happens quite often on these types of things. But from our point of view, whether we support it or not, I think you're getting an idea that we worry about the money. And, you know, if you remember back when we did the community center, over 98% of the people checked that swimming pool that they wanted it on there. But then when it got time to build the thing, they said, well, that's too much money. We don't want to add that. So, you know, a lot of people on a no-charge article could say, well, the finance guy, they don't know what they're talking about. This thing's great for the country and great for the world, and we need to do this. That's not our concern at this point. Our concern is what's going to come from this. And I think starting with a resolution, giving everybody in Harwich, this is a Harwich bylaw you're proposing, gives us a year to really and meet with your group and start working on some ideas as to how to achieve these goals. And I would rather have that presented at town meeting myself than a new bylaw that says, thou shalt do this.
Okay,
Do the other members of the Finance Committee also withdraw their objections if it is presented as a resolution instead of a bylaw?
Brian?
So,
We've got one.
ladies, I would tell you that I'm very sympathetic and empathetic to this particular issue, but the reality is that I get the sense that this isn't going to be successful in the form you've presented it with this group because it just doesn't fit our overlay. I think you'd be far more successful bringing this as a resolution, allowing people to get used to it, and to work towards ultimately building this into a warrant where there'd be a hard financial commitment for the future. But right now, it sounds like you're going to be far more successful posturing this as a resolution.
Others?
My
Tom?
question
Tom?
still,
Tom?
will your committee support it as a resolution?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question. We're going to let Tom speak next.
Yeah, well, not to jump on with everybody else, but again, I would, support a resolution, yes. As far as the vagueness and the open-ended of the way this is written, it's telling us we're going to have a bylaw that's going to cost us money, and we don't know how much money, and we don't know what the exact scope of work that has to be done to achieve these goals. So it's so vague and open-ended that a resolution that we start looking forward and going greener than we are now is wonderful, but as far as a bylaw, I think it needs to be hammered out a little bit harder than it is now.
So I think that partway answers your question. At least a majority of the Finance Committee is thinking that way. Dale, do you have something different? Or?
Yeah. Of the 7 or 8 towns who have adopted this kind of policy, do we have any knowledge, history, experience of what they're spending?
No, I don't believe any of the articles contained any, because they're all sort of modeled after the same template. They don't contain any money at this point. They're there are plans to move forward after these bylaws or resolutions are adopted and develop specific approaches that we would then come with a monetary amount attached to.
Okay, so given that, I think we would probably be more successful if we hammered that out ahead of time and presented that as part of the article.
We have Carol here. Carol, any future financial obligations you see coming from something like this, or do you want to weigh in on this at all, or no?
Well, I see a tremendous amount of work on the capital plan that would have to occur in order for this to be implemented. And as you go out 7 years in your capital plan, you're already, at year, 2027 or 8?
Yeah.
And so if the goal is this to be 2030, I think it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
But I'm not opposed to it, it's
Right.
just planning.
And I think that's the census here is that I don't think we're opposed to this. I think, like many good ideas that come before us, we look a lot at the dollars and cents and just wonder what this one's going to be because we don't have enough information. I think if this was a piece of equipment, we'd be recommending that we indefinitely postpone it completely. And I think that's the way this committee would go if it stays as a bylaw. At least that's what I'm hearing across the table now. I think as a resolution, you have a much better chance of having our support and having something go forward, which is the way I feel it should be. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Okay, this one.
Okay, this is Robin again. This is great feedback and educational for us, so thank you very much. And we certainly do recognize that Harwich is among the leaders on the Cape in this area. We feel there's more work to be done. So why don't we regroup and then maybe talk to the moderator and rethink how we might propose this. But that's terrific. Thanks for your feedback. And Deborah or Susan, I don't know if you have any other questions.
Anyone? John?
Just one quick question. Was it Robin is the spokesman, I guess, for the group there? Robin, if you could send Dana contact information for your group, I wouldn't mind talking to you, outside this meeting one-on-one to learn more about it myself,
Wonderful. Okay.
If you could pass.
And John, what's your last name?
Chorey, Chorey.
Okay.
We don't call him.
I'd be glad.
And John is spelled Jon.
And
Okay,
Robin,
great. Okay, sure.
all of our meetings are always posted. They always have the call-in information. And certainly, like we do this one, if we have guests come in, which we don't always have on the Finance Committee, as most people understand why, we certainly would recognize you and allow you to speak. We always let people speak at the Finance Committee.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for your
Welcome.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Are any of the other people on the call, or anybody here for any other article at all?
Hi, I'm here for article, I don't have the exact number, forgive me, commercial single-use plastic water bottle ban.
Okay, wonderful. That's Article 40 for us.
Yes, and I apologize, there are two other individuals that are trying desperately to dial in, but they're having difficulties getting through because of the GoToMeeting platform.
It's not easy.
I am here. I can hear now, so I'm also here. I'm a Harwich resident, Bonnie Bridges.
Okay, Bonnie, you call a number 4 there then, okay? We would do this, excuse me, I have a question.
We're not going to vote at all on that first article.
They said they're going to come back to us with a discussion on.
I hope we do.
Yeah.
Let's wait.
And
A discussion on what?
If someone wants to give us an overview, like we just had with the past article, if you could give us an overview of what you're doing and what you're trying to do, we can go from
I
there.
can do that. I would be happy to do that. Patrick Otten is trying to dial in. He's having difficulty getting on your platform, so I'll just do it on his behalf. That's okay. The commercial
And I can
single-use
add some things after Madhavi. I can add some comments afterwards.
Wonderful.
Yes. I'll just give you a general overview right now, please. The commercial single-use plastic water bottle ban has been filed in every town within the Cape. Either, as you know, we filed the municipal plastic bottle ban last year in the town of Harwich. It was the first to adopt in January 1st, 2020. The commercial single-use plastic bottle ban actually expands on this. We did this in a sequential process of the municipal government first, and then retail establishments second, just to continue the education platform of why we want to reduce single-use plastic water bottles. It is the first step with regard to understanding the adverse impact of many of our consumption items, specifically convenience consumption items. So this has been filed. It is on the warrants of other towns, and it has gone through the Board of Selectmen in several towns, but then COVID came about, so we weren't able to continue. We have gotten a positive reaction from the Boards of Selectmen, and in terms of any questions you have, we'd be happy to answer them. The ban itself covers non-flavored, non-carbonated, still drinking water in single-use plastic containers of less than a gallon in size. It does have an emergency provision, just as the municipal ban did. In the case of a declaration of an emergency, there would be no limitation in terms of the actual container that water would be delivered. And other than that, it has a fine, so it has an enforcement vehicle. This is not a policy, but a bylaw. And similar bylaws have been filed and have gone into enforcement in Martha's Vineyard as of this year, as well as last year. Martha's Vineyard's retail restrictions are greater than this because it deals with soda as well as drinking water, and it has a specific fluid ounce with regard to the plastic container.
And someone wanted to add something else?
Yes, I was just going to, this is Bonnie speaking. The town of Harwich was the first town on the Cape to pass the municipal single-use plastic water bottle ban. We did the right thing last year for our town in the Cape, and now we're asking for your vote and support for the next step, a commercial ban. In whatever form our next town meeting takes, our town officials and residents need to get behind this effort of sustainable practices to ban the sale of single-use plastic water bottles, to show the Cape Harwich can be the leader in doing the right thing. Not all plastics are needed. Some uses are simply harmful as governing members of the town. As governing members of the town, you have a duty to protect our community and environment. Banning plastic water bottle containers of less than 1 gallon is a start. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to the board for questions. I know I have a couple myself. I know this is a Cape-wide effort and a national effort and a whoever knows where effort, worldwide effort. Can you tell us where this is a Harwich bylaw, how many businesses in Harwich this affects?
It would affect every single business in Harwich. It is a retail bylaw. It would affect all commercial sale of single-use plastic water bottles where the water is non-flavored, non-carbonated in a container of less than 1 gallon in size.
But have you reached out to any of them to find out what kind of financial impact this has?
I'm going to answer that question in a very simple way. If this is a bylaw that affects every single business, even if the product that they substitute with goes into effect, it would be the same price across all entities. So it would not disadvantage any entity. And we're looking at a single cost increase if you're looking at an aluminum can of 25 cents. So the elasticities of consumption in terms of the elasticities of demand, which is what you would look at as a retailer, would not be affecting the retail sale of those products if people were still looking to purchase them. But the thing that you should be more concerned about is that this overall movement is about behavioral change, which means that we are looking for the reduction of convenience-based consumption, period. Which means fundamentally that retailers will not be hopefully making money based on single sale items. We're looking at selling items that can be reused on a continuous basis.
Okay, I'll just remind you that the Finance Committee voted against this last year, but we were overruled at town meeting.
Yeah,
So we
I-
sometimes think.
I'm going to remind you, I'm going to just share one thing with you.
Sure.
The problem fundamentally has become that when we think about costs, we're looking at market prices. And market prices are not indicative of the true cost of anything because they don't factor in the externalities. And as our population is becoming more and more educated about that, they're realizing that $1 single-use plastic container is not worth the environmental harm it causes, nor is it consistent with the whole idea and philosophy of eliminating this non-renewable fuel dependency because it is a petroleum-based product. So on one hand, you can't claim to be looking at climate change as an issue and then still advocating for the sale of single-use plastic bottles because of a small dent in retail sales. Because fundamentally what you're doing is aggravating the issue of greenhouse gases. This is going to be a 20% greenhouse gas footprint at minimum by 2050, and that's not that long into the future. And we're talking about global emissions. Petroleum-based companies that have nothing else to do in terms of their growth trajectory, given the transfer to green fuels, are looking to push plastics. And we should not be using this as a vehicle in terms of subsidizing human health based on current gratification and short-term profits.
Right, I was just trying to get at where this is a bylaw for the town of Harwich, what impact it has on the town of Harwich, and what percentage of the problem the town of Harwich is.
Okay, I'm going to say this to you, and I hope that you will take this as an appeal. Harwich will, by setting the example as it did town meeting, what you have to think about is this change is going to happen one way or another. It's going to happen. But would you like to be the leader on this change? Or do you want to be the one who sat back and said, well, we don't really want to have a short-term loss in revenue of $10,000 this year. So we're going to continue to pollute our environment and have an impact that's going to last in excess of our lifetimes and my grandchildren's lifetimes.
Okay.
That's the question you should ask me.
If we were to switch over to everything that is now in plastic water bottles to aluminum cans, doesn't that create the same situation?
No, if you can't, and I think Patrick Otten has gotten on the line and he can give you some DPW statistics. But if you look at aluminum, the benefit of aluminum is endlessly recyclable. With plastic, it's not recyclable. The recycling, even in your town, it costs you money to get rid of because nobody's taking it. As long as the price of petroleum is low, the need to recycle, which is a very inefficient process, less than 20% get recycled. And they only usually get downcycled, which means it's in your clothing, which is one of the vehicles of how it gets into your drinking water. But aluminum, on the other hand, can be endlessly recycled into another aluminum can. So it is much more efficient from the waste perspective, especially if the town does sanction and promote aluminum recycling. But the plastic has a lot of adverse consequences directly from a finance committee perspective. It has a cost, whereas the aluminum actually has a revenue. So Patrick, are you on the line? Can you provide that statistic?
Excuse me. We'll recognize him in a moment.
Yeah, hello, everybody. This is Patrick Otten.
Patrick, hold on.
Hello, everybody. This is Patrick Otten.
Patrick, if you could just hold for a minute. I have one more question. The last question I would have before others chime in, when we say that there has to be a declared emergency to be able to distribute plastic water bottles, what about just a hot day where it's not a declared emergency, but you got, especially today in the COVID world, you've got crews, frontliners out there working in some of the hot, humid heat we've had lately. It's not a declared emergency. Are they allowed water bottles then, or do they have to wait for some sort of declared emergency? Is that a declared emergency at the local level?
Mr. DeCosta, if I could address that question. The single-use plastic water bottle, if you care about your frontline workers, leaches contaminants into the drinking water. So if you care about your frontline workers and care about an emergency situation on a hot day, and even in an emergency situation, it would be much better to stockpile aluminum canned items because you won't have the same amount of leachate issue that you would with looking at single-use plastic water bottles. Many of the companies out there have no BPA in their linings, which you cannot say for sure is the case for single-use plastic water bottles. Any study out there will show you that there are contaminants in those single-use plastic water bottles that are specifically related to the chemicals leaching out of that plastic. So the example that you're using, which is a sensitivity issue with regard to your frontline workers, wouldn't it be better to address that issue with a product that's not as toxic or potentially toxic to them?
No, I personally think it would be better if the state or the national level were to address this, not the town of Harwich. But we have Tom with a question.
Yes, Tom.
May I say one thing before Tom gets on?
Hold on.
All of us understand that our state and national officials are voted into office. So they're only going to vote into office when we have an educated enough public and when local governments take a stand on those issues that are important to the health and safety of their constituents.
Hello. I had to cut you off there because I want to make sure that we're keeping the meeting orderly. I called on Tom. He's going to ask the next question, and then we'll go on from there, okay? Tom?
All right.
Okay. I'm listening to your argument, and I can see, you know, plastic is bad, and it's not, you know, it's not recyclable economically, and I understand all that. But you're telling me that it's bad to go and buy a bottle of water, but yet I could go buy a bottle of 7-Up in a plastic container or a bottle of Coca-Cola in a plastic container, and that would be okay. Can you explain to me why?
Yes, we'd be happy to explain why. The same reason why we started with the municipal ban last year and then are going to a commercial ban this year. What we're trying to ensure is that the public understands why they're being regulated. Because if you understand why you're being regulated, then you're going to be more apt to understand why you should meet the intention of that regulation. So the stepwise issue is that people, the first thing that you're asking me right now is what is a substitute? You're still not understanding that the point is the convenience-based product, that the resource footprint is the issue, not whether it's whether the convenience is met or not. So since we knew that that question was going to be asked, basically non-flavored, non-carbonated drinking water is available from drinking fountains in your faucet everywhere. And this town of Harwich has quality drinking water. You have a water quality report. So from that perspective, there is a simple substitution that is much lower in cost and probably safer and healthier for your town residents. And the use of a reusable bottle is one that we would advocate. So fundamentally, we cannot advocate for a product that would substitute for 7-Up for somebody who prefers sugared and carbonated beverages. But we can say that it would be healthier for them to drink water from their tap. So it is an education process. The uneducating of America has happened over the last 50, 60 years. It's going to take a little while for the re-education of America, but we think we can do it relatively quickly because the adverse consequences of our ignorance are all around us.
Other questions from the board? Do you have any results where it's been over a year now in the town of Harwich as to what effect the municipal ban has had on the town?
May I let Patrick speak? And he also has the DPW statistics for you because he's a resident and he's spoken with your DPW and your water department on a few occasions.
Okay. Patrick?
Yeah, hello. Hello, thank you everyone on the Finance Committee. This is Patrick Otten. I live in East Harwich. In talking with Link Hooper this week, he has told me that the aluminum that gets sent out, the town earns $85 per ton for every ton of aluminum that is sent out. Okay. For paper, the town earns $35 a ton for every ton of paper that's shipped off Cape. When it comes to plastic, the town pays as an expense $200 per ton for every ton of plastic that's shipped off Cape. So there's some numbers for you to record in terms of aluminum, paper, and plastic. Also, let me remind you that in Harwich, we pay $1.29 for 1,000 gallons of water. Okay, $1.29 for 1,000 gallons of water coming out of our tap. If we were to buy that same quantity of water in bottles, it would cost us $9,600. not $1.29, but $9,600. So you have some very stark statistics in front of you in terms of the cost of plastic, the cost of water. Okay? So
Okay. I don't agree with your
there are
statistics, but you did
alternatives.
answer the question.
Go ahead.
I will answer your question, Dana, if you don't, or Mr. DeCosta, forgive me. The issue with the municipal ban would have to be addressed with your town manager. I think unfortunately, because of the COVID situation, you're not really adequately able to assess it because all functions in the town government have fundamentally shut down, since that period of started since the COVID incident has increased and social distancing has gone into effect. The municipal ban only prohibited town purchase of single-use plastic bottled beverages and the sale of beverages in single-use plastic containers on town property. So you have no events occurring. So it has had no effect because everything has been nullified in general.
And Mr. DeCosta, this is Bonnie Bridges speaking. I might remind you that Ed McManus at first was very concerned about the municipal ban. And after research, he was in charge of the Cranberry Festival, has been for years. And he got on board with us. He said, there's no reason that we can't go to aluminum.
Okay. Angelo has a question.
I have a question in that there are many things that people buy and eat out of a plastic bottle or drink out of a plastic bottle, salad dressing, everything else. What is making water in the bottle more dangerous to people than anything else? It strikes me as
It's
odd.
not-
It strikes me as odd
Yeah.
that if it's health that's a problem, that we're dealing with a small little area in health rather than saying over the next 5 years, all plastic containers have to be gone because people turn green after 2 weeks or whatever the issue is. So what's the problem?
Mr. LaMancha, if I can, and I hope I'm saying your name correctly, if I could address that. Single-use plastic water bottles represent 60% of all bottled beverages. That's number one. Number two, everyone consumes them. So it's something, if you're trying to make this an educational platform, it's something that everyone is aware of. It's not that salad bottles are lesser of a hazard. It's just that it's not, we have to take, if you want to have a grassroots movement where you're educating people to regulate them, you need to start with the way of educating them first. So I don't think you're thinking about what we're doing in the way that we're thinking about it. We're fundamentally thinking about it as a stepwise educational platform. Eventually, if you eliminate half an aisle of beverages because no longer is water there, that's how much it takes up of the grocery aisle. Salad dressing does not. You make a very public statement that says, I need to wonder why plastic water bottles aren't available. Maybe I should start to rethink other things that I consume in plastic, which is fundamentally our goal. And if we look on a global scale, almost every major country has already tried to eliminate convenience-based plastic. Our country has not. And we have a reason for that because we are highly fragmented and also people don't know what to do. When a town government stands up and says, we are going to make a stand because it's the right thing to do, you will have many other people follow your lead. So we're giving you an opportunity.
You didn't answer my
Thank
question.
you.
My question is,
I did answer your question. I did answer your question. You asked me why we're not going after salad dressing bottles. I told you that single-use plastic water bottles are 60% of the market. It's a huge component of the market. Over 2,000 of them are consumed every minute in the United States. So we are looking at one item that can make a huge impact.
sorry, but my question was, what is the problem that it causes people? You said it got them ill. It's a problem. What sickness?
Oh,
Because
yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm sorry.
I'm
I'm
talking
going
now.
to tell you that.
And that's the important thing. If indeed plastic bottles and you eat anything out of it is a problem, tell me what it is in water and everything else. I'll be happy to give up all plastic bottles. But what is the
Sure, I'll be happy to tell you. I'll be happy to tell you. How single-use plastic water bottles have been directly tied to something that we've normalized in our society, but both you and I are old enough to know didn't exist when we were growing up, ADHD, fertility, endocrine disruption, cardiovascular disease. All of those have been tied directly to plastic, and single-use plastic particularly. On top of that, there is emerging information with regard to catheters and the plastic catheters and their use in hospitals. The issue fundamentally is for us is that this is a product that's become ubiquitous over a 40-year period of time that is so entrenched within our economy that the idea of questioning it has stopped. But when we start to think about the fact that we have normalized all these illnesses and we take them for granted and we wonder to ourselves, why does healthcare cost continue to escalate year after year? Well, maybe it's because of what we're consuming and how we're consuming it.
Okay.
I don't think that's a huge leap.
I'll just get it back to Harwich again. John, does that answer your question now, Angelo?
No, I just would like them to bring material that's published by the doctors, the medical area, of the problem. You know, people are living longer now than 40 years ago, so
All right.
I don't like the games.
John had a question.
Thank you for your presentation, and just two quick questions. One is to follow up on the plastic water bottle ban for this town meeting. Is your objective next year's town meeting to come before the town and ask to ban carbonated plastic bottles?
We will address that strategy after we complete this strategy. So we're a sequential and very pragmatic organization. Can I answer it that way? And just going back with regard to the medical statements and the AMA and other organizations, we do have a messaging document we would be very happy to send to you. It is full of references that you can go back and check to the original source. So this is not something that we are just fabricating. It is something that has been reported on over and over again. The reason why we tend not to hear about it is we don't want to forget the strength of corporations with regard to selling their product. Oftentimes squelches out the sounds of those that tell you that something shouldn't be consumed.
Okay, so I'll take that as a yes, that you'll be back next year with a ban on soda bottles and other carbonated drinks and sport drinks. So the next question.
I'll remember you, Ron. Yeah, I'll remember that an uncertain statement means a yay. We're subject to your interpretation. But no, I didn't answer that question.
It's similar to knowing the total cost of a project. I'd like to know the total objective of your objectives, and so that's how I interpret it. It's my own interpretation.
Oh, that's very, yeah, I can tell you our objective. Our objective is to get people to start to think about the true cost of their consumption. Because we can talk about sustainability and climate change mitigation and adaptation all the time, anytime. But until we get people to actually change their behavior and see how everything that they consume affects that, to start to buy based on their needs rather than their wants, we cannot create the changes that are needed. I'm sure you all have heard of carbon taxes and the discussion around that. Carbon taxes are an indirect way to eliminate people purchasing what they want and just only allow them the ability to afford what they need. So let's put it this way. If there was a carbon tax on a single-use plastic water bottle, that tax would be sufficiently high. That bottle should be selling for $5 or $7. That would be the way to eliminate its use. But you and I both know it's a political issue. As long as people wish to be real, it won't happen.
Is that a proposal for Harwich?
That would be a federal position.
Right.
That wouldn't be possible to do on a town basis.
All right, we got two more questions here.
My second question is, just to make you aware, you may not be aware, you are aware, that there is another private petition on the warrant to rescind last year's municipal plastic bottle ban. Are you aware of that?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Brian has a question.
So I'm more oriented towards a statement than a question. I would just offer a suggestion, which is that I worked as a consultant for many years in the work that you do. I'm totally supportive of your vigor and your enthusiasm and your passion, but I would suggest to you that right now you're postured in a way that isn't going to be beneficial. It doesn't present the argument well. I don't believe it would transfer very well to town meeting either. I know what you're trying to achieve. I think that the goal is admirable, I would strongly suggest to you that there are lots of different ways to sell a concept. I think right now, this would not be the most successful approach to selling this concept. And it's not going to get the reception you're looking for, in my opinion. I've listened to you very carefully. I understand the arguments. I think a lot of what you say is very valid. But I think people are very afraid of agenda creep. I think that what was approved last year gets amended this year and then gets further amended next year. And people are very frightened by that process. So my suggestion to you would be that you might want to consider your approach and perhaps temper it.
Any other
We have
questions?
an
Any other questions from the
comment.
Finance Committee?
Mr. DaCosta,
Yes?
do we have an opportunity to say anything after Mr. Wiener's comment?
Sure, if you'd like.
I appreciate your comments, but this is not a creep. This is a separate bylaw. The first one only referred to the town government. We heard a lot of feedback that people said, why are we only limiting it to the town government? Why aren't we doing a full retail ban? So this is a sequential next step forward. The other thing that's just practical and I think universally understood is we live in an era where we are living in the outcome of man-made climate change, speed of climate change activity. To say that we should somehow temper our actions when there obviously is a tremendous amount of urgency to such action, if nothing else, other than to start to get people to think about what they're doing, would be to say that on one hand, there is an urgency, and on the other hand, to act in opposition to that sense of urgency. So we can't follow that lead, but thank you so much for your comments.
Any other questions from the board? Any other comments from the callers?
Yes, hello, this is Patrick Otten again.
Yeah.
I think in this discussion, it is critically important to distinguish between short-term versus long-term expenses. A lot of your focus as Finance Committee, rightly so, is based on short-term expenses. What's the cost today? What's the cost going to be tomorrow? However, please understand that all the plastics made since the 60s, that's 50 years ago, are still with us today. Plastics being made today will be with us 1,000 years from now. That's long-term. That's the goal we're going for. We need to take a long-term perspective to get a solution implemented now so that we can live on Cape Cod by choice to have a plastic-free environment, plastic-free woodlands, plastic-free beaches, plastic-free oceans, plastic-free ponds. That's the goal. I really hope we're able to take a long-term cost analysis and implement action today to solve the problems that we have today. Does that make sense?
I heard exactly what you said. We're going to end the discussion now. I'll see if the members want to put forward any kind of motion. Is there, this is Article 40, commercial single-use plastic water bottles for the town of Harwich. To vote the following bylaw, and then there's the bylaw is spelled out. This is a bylaw for the town. Is there a motion? Anyone?
A comment. I thought we were going to wait until we hear the petitioner for Article 41 come and present.
Actually, I've spoken to her, and we would take that one next, depending on what we do. The last I heard from the board that we would hear, we wanted to hear from this one before we took a stance on that one, but I can answer. She gave me all of her stuff. If you have additional questions, we can go back to her.
Okay.
But if you have additional questions on this one, now's the time. We have the people in front of us. Dale?
Do we know why we're rescinding the municipal order from last year?
It's just a motion.
Yeah, the petitioner spelled it out in her petition as to what effects it's having on local charities and local businesses and so forth. So if you read that paper that went with it, That's her explanation. Is there a motion on this one? Do we have a motion? Someone want to come out and say it? Tom does, I know he does. No? Angelo?
Let's wait until we think about the other one and this. I think my problem is, I hear what they're saying, but I have not been given any proof that it's a major problem for people. That's my problem.
All right. Okay, so apparently we're going to hold this for a while longer. I don't know what, if we come up with additional questions, we'll contact you. All of our meetings are posted. The agenda call-in information is always with each postings. You may continue to chime in at any time. If we take a position and you want to talk to us after that, that's allowed as well. We will carry the conversation on as to where we stand on this all the way probably to town meeting. Town meeting's going to be outdoors this year in the sun, so I think there's going to be a lot of water bottles there, but who knows? I know they're making plans for that. But I thank you for coming tonight. I invite you to come back before us at any time to talk to us. We always like to listen to people. That's where we get our information, as well as what you send us. If you have any additional follow-up stuff you want to send to us on the health stuff, that would be good. If you don't know how to get a hold of us, we do have a website and email address there. You can get a hold of us that way. All right?
Thank you very much for your time,
Thank you.
Mr. DeCock.
Yep.
One quick item, just because I heard Mr. LaMancha say a comment with regard to human health. I just want to make sure that we make it very clear. This is not just a human health issue. It is an environmental issue. There are plastic emissions. There are emissions from plastic production, excuse me. There's the extraction process for the petroleum, the human health impact, and the fact that it outlives human life. So we have no understanding of how long it lives out there. But one last thing, and I will send this along to you as well. I'm hoping you'll find it interesting to read. But there was just a recent scientific journal that published that little crustaceans, which we know that we have here on the Cape, are able to quickly break down plastic into nanoplastics within a matter of 4 days, which means that increases the prevalence of that being in the water stream. We know it's in the air that we breathe already. And these are issues that we need to take into consideration. So we'll send you that information as well. We thank you and we hope you'll read it with an open mind. This is a chance to make a really good difference in the world. Thank you.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
We're going to kind of go back and review the CPC articles. First off, on the Article 30, which is to fund the Affordable Housing Trust. I did make a mistake on that Tuesday night. There was a motion to accept and adopt it. And there was a second to that motion. We debated it, and then we voted 2-4 to accept that motion. And I made the declaration that it was indefinitely postponed, which is the way we do things at town meeting, but it's not the way we do things here in the Finance Committee. And I made a mistake, and I admit that. It happens. What I should have done as chairman is ask for a motion to indefinitely postpone that right after that, and I didn't. And that way, the person who motioned it to accept and adopt it would not be associated with the person with the indefinite postponement. So I also have new information on that article. And either way, with or without the mistake, would ask for a motion to reconsider that article.
So moved.
It's moved by Brian. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. All those in favor of the motion to reconsider, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is reconsidered. So we have to have a new motion. I did find out today from the chairman, and I thank him for taking the time to come see me earlier this evening and talk to me about some of the articles that we have left remaining. So I have an update on each of them. This is pretty much the same article that we had last year, except it has 250,000 instead of 230. There's a $20,000 increase for the person because apparently they went from part-time to full-time is what I'm hearing. And apparently this is coming from the Board of Selectmen, that portion of it. So I think that, or at least a member of the board. I'm not sure if it's the trust or if it's the board or what's going on. So I think our question is with the Board of Selectmen and not with the CPC in this particular case. So I will try to get to that answer through the subcommittee. I'll ask that if we could just hold this until we have another meeting with them and possibly get an answer that way. At some point, we'll have a meeting with them to go over any questions that we have with them. But I'll try to get us an answer on that one quicker rather than later if we agree that we can hold that one for a little bit. Does that seem like a way to go? That we'll just hold it for now and then make a motion one way or the another again? And I'll try not to make the mistake again of saying that something is indefinitely postponed if we don't support it. Okay, the next one on that list was the lighting at White House Field. That is the $380,000. It's proposed that motion, that is coming from the town. They are bringing it forward because of the Mariners and the use that that field get and the amount of money that it brings to the town. And because of the problems they had last year, they just Band-Aided it, and now they're trying to fix it. We have the money available to do that. I can tell you that if this wasn't a CPC article and that we didn't have the money, it would probably be waiting for quite a while to get into some sort of queue to do this in a priority listing, but it might move up too because it's a used field. So I know that I've reached the point where I think it's, I'm going to support it, and I don't know where everybody else is, but it's coming as a town request. It's coming through CPC, and that's what the cost is to fix these lights. And we've had a problem with it for a while, and now it's time to fix them. Anybody want to make a motion?
I will make a motion that we accept and adopt Article 32 regarding the funding of White House Field lighting in the amount of $380,360.
Second.
Who's second? Is that Dale? Dale. Discussion? Comments, questions? John?
Yeah, I commented on Tuesday on this article there. One, do we have a firm estimate that it's $380,000?
That's what it is to fix it, yep.
That's a firm estimate, it's a quote.
From the electricians, yes.
Yeah. And what about the Brooks Park lighting system? I mean, Eric is asking for this money, he asked for the other money. What's the status of that project?
I don't know the status of that project, but I know that these two projects are independent of each other.
Yeah. But they're similar lighting projects, though, and,
Which maybe means they could be bundled and we could end up saving some money, I don't know.
well, that's what I would like to possibly think, yeah. So, but we have a firm estimate of $380,000, okay.
That's why it's 380, 360.
Yeah, okay.
360 must be for those little plastic nuts that go on the end of wires or something.
And,
I can only imagine.
and if this is approved at September's town meeting, will these lights be installed and ready to go by the start of the season? Can they work on it over the winter, the fall, the spring?
You don't know.
You don't
We
know
don't
that. So how can we vote when we don't know that answer? You know, and I'd like to-
I know it won't start without the money,
Yeah,
without the town meeting vote.
but who's, That's another fundamental question is, who's the project manager on this project? Who do we go to see what's going on with this project? Is it Eric? Is it town administrator?
Eric, well, actually, the Recreation Youth Commission is the group in charge of the field. Sean Libby through Highway is the facilities manager. When it gets passed from one to the other, I don't know, but the ultimate responsibility for the field is the Recreation and Youth.
Okay,
They would have the answer as who the project manager is.
okay, because I know that group is having difficulties with the Brooks Park lighting system.
Right.
So,
Dana,
Yes, Dan?
the application designates who the project manager is, so we'd have to get the.
The CPC application, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be right in their minutes. That would be either on their, their TV program. They have, all their meetings are taped like ours are and presented like ours are. So I would say we could get that information fairly quickly.
Yeah.
or just ask Dave Nixon, right? I mean, that's a lot of meetings to look at to get an answer on that.
No, you just need to pull the CPC application for this
Okay.
project
Okay.
Okay.
and see who the project manager is.
Do we know, is there an electrical contractor involved? And is there a timeline on his, did he put a bid in? Do we have a timeline? When he's gonna start the work, when the work's gonna be completed? And if this is his hard dollar number, can we hold his feet to the fire and say, this is your number, and we don't care about extras, this is your number?
Well, I would say, we can't say that, the contract would, the contract would have to say that.
Contract?
I would assume so. So I'm assuming we want to hold this.
I'd like to hold, personally, I'd like to hold it, because again, this comes back to other projects. It's been a concern of mine of lots of other unspent warrant articles. And this is kind of forcing it for me, because it's yet another $330,000 that we don't have the answers to. We don't have a firm quote in front of me seeing it. We don't have who's the project manager, and we don't have answers to why the Brooks Park lights aren't up. It's the same,
Okay.
almost identical project.
I would
So
say
I
the
would
Brooks
like to
Park
hold
one is a separate issue that you
I
have
know
with
it's a
that one.
separate issue, but it's run by the same people.
Okay.
So if history is a dictation of the future, it's the same people that asked for the Brooks Park money are asking for this money. And they've had 3 years to get the Brooks Park lights up. And I don't know what the status of that project is either.
All right, Brian?
I mean, I'm curious because there's been a lot of discussion relative to financial conservatism this year, given everything the town's going through. My question, a larger just, what do you think question is this the year that we necessarily want to spend $380,000 on those lights in that park? Or is it something we might want to put off for a year so that we can get caught back up and catch our breath?
Well, I think the first question that came out was, would it be ready in time for the season?
Right.
Is the real question, because if we wait a year, would it be ready for the next season?
I think the larger question is, will there be a season next year?
Right.
That's
We don't know
why
the
I
answer to that.
suggest.
We're not going to get that on a.
No, but that's why I suggest perhaps is this the year that we put this off for a bit and wait to see how things settle out, because we have a lot of issues financially the town is going to be confronting.
Right, but you got to also just consider the source of this money. The source of this money is CPC, and
It's not the taxes.
they basically have a lot of money sitting in a large pile, in many cases more than we have, to be able to do projects like this, and they bring them forward as they see.
So if we turn it down this year, is there a possibility we wouldn't get it next year?
No, the money's going to be there next year, too. It's going to be more of it. How much do you need? I mean, for what they're doing for project, the money over the last decade and a half has increased faster, basically, than they're using it. So the number keeps kind of getting up. It's 3% surtax of everything we tax. So, I mean, as far as our tax base goes. So whatever the levy limit is, you add 3% on top of that, that goes into this fund. The amount of money that they used to pay for the land bank debt has been steadily going down, so that's in the $341,000 range now. So now the amount of money that they're spending out on that, which used to be $800,000, which used to be $900,000, it used to be $1 million, is now cropped down to $3, and that ends in 2 years, 2024. That's gonna disappear. So, what they have to spend their big money on is getting smaller, and what's coming in, every time the tax levy goes up, that goes up with it. So the money they're getting in is more. Tom?
The money that they're requesting, I'd like to see the contract. Number one, I'd like to see deadlines, that it's gonna be spent in a timely fashion, and this will be ready for next season, because if we do have a season next year, it's gonna be a major source of revenue, because having none this year, I think is gonna be a big draw to the town, and it will bring a lot of money into the town. So it's a good thing, it's money well spent, but agreeing with John, they sat on Brooks Park for 3 years. Are they gonna sit on this if we give them the money and it's like, okay, it's a great thing, and next season comes and we have nothing? Same
Okay.
as Brooks Park, so.
I'm not sure they're in charge of the answer to that one. I think a different entity in town would be, but we'll
Yeah,
find
I
out
don't think there's a contract, because the town can't commit to that project until it has
till the money's in.
money. So they have an estimate, I'm sure, from whoever they sought estimates from.
All right, so we have, right now, in any effect, we have a motion that's moved and seconded to accept and adopt. Sounds like we're all over the board, so any more discussion on the motion to accept and adopt? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
How many, let's do hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 3. All right. So accept and adopt is 5 to 3. And we're all here for a vote, isn't that amazing?
Dana, can we get someone to come in here and
Yes.
explain this to
Yeah,
us? I
yeah.
mean, I'm all in favor, the Mariners.
And if I'm sure that the 5 who supported this don't like the answers, we're gonna
Yeah.
change our mind too. But
Yeah,
it's
it's just-
all the way through this, John, we've said that anything that's coming before us now, we have a draft warrant we're working with. We don't even know if this is gonna be on the warrant. With CPC might decide, well, this is not the year to do any of these, and withdraw them. We don't know. So
To Dan's point, if we don't have a contract, then they're not gonna commit to a date.
CPC doesn't have contracts up front. They go out and get their estimates, they come in with their bids. We're gonna talk about the same type of thing on the next 2 things. They don't work that way and never have.
So until
We've
we
always,
award a contract, we won't have a proposed deadline.
we have always voted their money contingent on whatever's left over gets turned back in and so on and so forth.
The department can't commit the town to a contract unless there's money behind it, so.
Unless it's worked into it that,
Authorized.
subject to town meeting.
Appropriated.
So we won't have a deadline until we have a contract.
And we won't have
I
a
don't know,
hard
we
number
might,
either.
we're gonna go for that
Yeah,
answer.
I just want to see
I agree
some,
with
I want
John.
to see an estimate. Like this,
Yeah.
it's got to be some estimate out there.
Well, we also have to
There is,
follow
right?
the procurement chain and
Yeah.
find out where why Brooks Park is held up, We've got a bathroom there that hasn't been.
Right, that's another
Used
thing. I
either.
mean, and there's a whole slew of those.
Yeah,
When an organization submits an application to CPC, they have to provide estimates, documented estimates. Case in point, the Brooks Library, the painting project.
That's a bad example.
That,
That's a
I know,
bad
Rick,
example,
and they
Dan.
got an estimate, and
That's
it
a
was
bad example.
understated. I know,
Yeah.
But that's happened.
The point being is
Yeah.
that they do get estimates,
yeah,
but it's not a hard contractual obligation.
yeah.
But not to belabor, but it should be pretty darn close to what the project's gonna cost.
And
mean,
the amount
just
can be
last-
negotiated down,
Yeah.
depending on,
Okay,
and that has happened,
that has happened.
yeah.
All right,
Let's go.
the next one was the Brooks Park fencing. I did learn today that, earlier today, that There was some money received from the town in the tornado fund to help reimburse us for things like that. That went into the general fund. This fencing project has more to do with, as I suspected, people getting injured by the existing fence, not repairing the existing fence, but getting injured by the existing fence, and they want to replace it with a new style fence. So that's what this one is about.
So will that require the funds that they received from the settlement as well as these additional funds?
No,
to
the
meet
funds that went
costs?
into the settlement went into the general fund, and they're being used to support our budget for next year. Correct, Carol?
Well, it'll fall to free cash, and then
Falls
it's up to
free
the Board of
cash.
Selectmen of how they want to use that free cash.
Thank you.
But this is CPC money, so it has nothing to do with that. Does anybody want to make a motion on this one?
I
or-
make a motion that we accept and adopt Article 33 in the amount of $72,657.
Second.
Discussion on that one.
This is a total fence replacement, backstop, fence, and everything? Everything that's out there is being ripped out and the whole new thing's being put in.
I don't know if they're reconfiguring anything or doing different gateways or anything like that, but it's to get rid of the old fence,
Fence.
yes.
Pretty well messed up.
And it's gotten people hurt.
Yeah.
It's pretty well messed
Oh,
up.
yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is that unanimous? Anybody? 8-0. Okay, we have the playground, favorite of everyone. This is the last CPC one, other than the one for affordable housing, which we have to talk to the selectmen about. This one I have learned is submitted to CPC by the town and has nothing to do with the schools. The town has submitted the project. They will be controlling the project and the rules and regulations that go with it and all those things. This is replacing the castle in the clouds. They pointed to a need for playgrounds when that playground was torn down because it was wooden and causing a lot of injuries, or causing injuries. I don't, everybody else can determine what a lot is, but causing injuries. Reports by the fire department of them having to go rescue people there with either severe splinters or cuts or whatever has happened. So it was torn down, and the town has submitted this article to CPC to replace it. This will replace the playground. There is a group, as John pointed out, that had been out raising money that will supplement this, that will be added to this to add to the project, not to take away any money from this 500,000. The 500,000 is being requested. If anybody remembers the kind of the first proposal, which was from the schools, which raised my concerns originally, was for $1.2 million, and it included a lot of things. This is not that. Some of the things that were taken out of that might be possibly done with some of the money that was raised by the schools, but this is a town project that's being brought forward for that property, town property, to replace the playground.
I'd
Questions?
like to move that.
Okay, well, let's get a motion, yeah, right.
I'd like
So,
to move that, please.
Brian, his motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Dan, and that's to accept and adopt 500,000 CPC? That's what I thought you said. Okay, discussion. Angelo?
Yeah. I believe that they're just going to replace the playground that's been there for years, the one that's fallen apart. Has anybody thought of moving it from there to the other side of, because,
It was moved from there to the landfill. That playground was completely taken down and dismantled by highway and moved away.
It's gone.
It's gone.
I live across
There's a
the street
vacant
from it.
flat field there now. Not grass, but sanded
are
over.
they going to put this back in that spot or something?
Yes, yeah.
Well, the reason I say that is parking's a problem, the school building's a problem, the cultural center creates a problem there. We have an opportunity to put that any place that we think is good. I mean, look around there and see if you want another spot. Obviously, you can put it back where it was, but I used to take my grandkids and kids there, and it's tough to park there. You have this, you have the school, you have this and that. So if we're gonna build a new great court, maybe it's worthwhile moving it.
I think they wanted it there because of the proximity to the elementary school, but I don't know that for 100% sure. I think we can find out that answer.
Yeah, but they're not paying for it.
I understand. We can ask the appropriate authorities on that one. Further discussion. Looks like they're ready for, John.
Does it meet the schools require, does it meet everybody's requirements? Because that's a huge reduction in costs.
Yeah,
Are they
but
getting the-
it was taken out of the hands of the schools, and the project is now to replace the Castle in the Clouds with a new playground. And this does that with better materials,
Yep.
more in line with today's stuff.
But the school is looking for a learning classroom as part of that playground.
They're not getting that unless
not
they
getting
fund
that?
it themselves.
Okay.
Anything else? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Me?
1. 7 to 1. Unless anybody had any new stuff on anything else, that's all I have for tonight. This went longer than I thought. I was hoping we'd get out quicker, but didn't happen. Anything else from anybody? I think if we can hear from the Board of Selectmen Monday, and if we can hear, we have a meeting Tuesday, and then if we can hear from the subcommittee Wednesday, and then have another meeting Thursday, I think that will pretty much finish where we're going to be. On the next meeting after that is Friday, the 21st. It's the night we have the 2 public hearings on a capital plan, which is, we don't have yet, and on a, I'm actually going to ask the board to vote the capital plan that we have between now and then if we don't get anything, but that's between us. I think that we need to have something for a public hearing. And we're, yes, but that's going to be in conjunction with the Board of Selectmen. I don't know when they're planning that. Tonight, the schools are voting the changes to their budget, so we should have, Carol probably have that tonight before she leaves her office here. I don't know. Who knows? They send it to you first, right? Everything. So we're in good shape. I thank you all for what we're doing. We voted over 30 articles now, and even, I don't see any growth in the warrant, maybe 1 article. We might end up with 45, but that will leave us about 15 left. We should vote some more next week, and we'll vote some more the final night before we go to print, and everything else will be voted as no recommendation pending further information. So we'll have a position on everything. We'll have our reasons typed up, and we'll have them sent out. Any problems with the reasons that I sent out, other than a couple of typos here and there?
No.
How did they look? We doing fine? We'll continue to do that. Anything else before we adjourn? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.